Defining happiness, I think, is really problematic in this area. There are a lot of different definitions floating around, and if you look at studies from economics, psychology, sociology, and so on, you'll see terms like happiness, subjective well-being, contentment, and satisfaction. These terms not only mean different things within a single study, they can often mean quite different things from study to study. So what one group might refer to as happiness may be closer to well-being for a different group, and so on. According to Aristotle, for him, true happiness is acquired when you know yourself and accomplish things for yourself. False happiness is simply when people think they are happy when in reality they are not. Others say that happiness is a mental state that arises from being physiologically healthy and free from serious mental worries. So basically, in summary, there is no current set definition as to what happiness really is. It is all relative. Aeschylus, a Greek dramatist, once said, "Happiness is a choice that requires effort at times. In my personal experience, I have always felt the need to please others. This would always be the most gratifying accomplishment in regards to my happiness. Then I began to ponder what in the world actually makes me happy. I have no way of knowing if the effort I'm putting into all I'm doing actually makes me happy. All I really have are the subjective comments that others have for me when it comes to my happiness and effort. However, what I want is the rational explanation behind those statements." This also brings up the question of how to quantitatively measure one's happiness. Many say that if you are true to yourself and your desires and do the things you value in life, the result is likely to be happiness. However, when will one actually be satisfied with their level of happiness? Now you see that all I have here is a big load of questions and no answers. So all of these questions are related to the big question of whether happiness itself is relative. The short answer to this question is, yes, it is relative, but to a certain extent. The theory that happiness is relative is old. It was already advanced by early Greek philosophers. Today, the theory lives in the social sciences as well as philosophy, in economics, in sociology, and in psychology. Though held in great respect intellectually, this theory is not often followed in practice. Many struggle all their life in hope of getting happier. At the collective level, many organizations try to improve the happiness of their citizens, and most modern states see it as their duty to create conditions for happiness of the citizens. So there is something very queer with this theory. My project is to prove and further explain this theory. Now, my claim is that happiness is indeed relative. The speaking tree said that 1 minute one is unhappy and the next minute happy. The mind shifts constantly and as rapidly as emotions change. We look at others mostly with envy, wanting what they have, but we don't look at those who don't have what we have and bow in gratitude for being blessed. Our intelligence fails in the wake of our wants because at such times we only see what others want to show us, not what the actual reality is. And there are always some positives and some negatives in all of our lives. But at the end of the day, these are merely perspectives of the mind. Contentment is being happy with what one has at all times, and any action that comes out of basic contentment is taken out of equilibrium and less out of desperation. There are a few postulates regarding this theory, which I will go into more detail with. My experimentation just further proves this theory. The first postulate is that happiness results from comparison. In my experiment, I observed the obvious change in character of the group as a whole when I had a few people stay silent in comparison to when I had a few people act loud and boisterous. The evaluation of life is more or less a conscious mental process that requires an assessment of if the standards of life as it is meets the standards of what life should be. The better the fit, the happier the person. Another postulate is that standards of comparison are arbitrary. In the interviews I conducted, people's definition of happiness were very different. According to a study I researched, standards of comparison are mental constructs that individuals develop. Therefore, standards differ with dispositions, life history, and environment. These subjective standards do not necessarily fit actual requirements for a good life, such as preservation of health, meaningful activity, or development. People may settle for less than possible, or may consider their life a failure if they have not managed to become a millionaire. My conclusion is that happiness is a sense of life satisfaction that depends only partly on comparison, and the standards of comparison seldom depend on the current circumstance. Much of the concept of happiness depends on simply one's brain and its mental needs, which oftentimes does not adjust to the circumstances. The better these needs are satisfied, the better humans feel about life. People cannot be happy when they are hungry, in danger, or isolated, not even if they have never known better and if their neighbors are worse off. To that manner, happiness is not relative, because if basic needs are not met, it is obvious that one would not be happy. All in all, happiness is a concept that will be debated for ages until we are scientifically capable of understanding how the human mind works. Unlocking the mysteries of the brain is, and forever will be, one of the greatest obstacles scientists and sociologists will have to go through.